today we're gonna have a story time. Well, not really, we're actually gonna be talking about dispatch companies in Japan. If you're not familiar with what a dispatch company is, basically it's just kind of like an agency, and you apply to work with them, and then you'll have an interview, and then maybe they'll give you some training, and then after that they will send you to a company or a school or something like that. I only really have experience working in the education sector with dispatch companies, so that's where most of my anecdotes are going to be from. So please let me know if you have experience working in other areas with dispatch companies. Dispatch companies are really popular in Japan. I think it's just like easier because even for Japanese people, looking for a job is kind of annoying. So you just apply to a dispatch company and then in your field, and then they'll send you to the place that you have to go, but they will take quite a big commission. I know for like foreign English teachers, dispatch companies do take like at least 30 or 40% of your salary, which is huge considering they honestly don't do that much work. This is going to be kind of a nuanced conversation, so I will say that like obviously there's a lot of positives to using dispatches, and that's why most people do use them, just because it's easier, and particularly if you're a foreigner in Japan and you're pretty new here, you won't know a whole lot of Japanese. So like a lot of the businesses will use a dispatch company simply because they don't want to communicate with you in English, or particularly if your Japanese isn't that good, and I know that a dispatch company always has translators, and they also vet the employees somewhat. So when a company hires a dispatch to find them employees, it normally means that the dispatch company will find someone semi-decent. Oh yeah, I forgot, I'm actually about to go to work, so this is why I'm dressed like this. I also wear glasses. Do not laugh, do not laugh. I don't normally show my why are they so, wait. I don't normally wear my glasses around my friends or like obviously anyone else, because like particularly working in Japan when people are really direct, people often tell me that glasses don't suit me and they're ugly, so like it made me not want to wear them anymore. But I do wear them when I watch TV or sometimes when I'm at work, but right now obviously I have to wear a mask at work all day, and I didn't get the anti-fog one, so I literally cannot wear them because if I wear a mask with them they just fog up. But yeah, I'm going to tell you about my experiences working with dispatch companies. I've known lots and lots of people work with dispatch companies, and honestly the experience normally isn't great because I normally find that dispatch companies do the bare minimum of finding you a job. They take most of your salary, and then they're just not really helpful. And I think like most of these HR positions, they're always on the side of the client and not the employee. So if there's something happens between you and the school, for example, they'll always side with the school, and you know, they'll just like get rid of you or bully you until you leave or something like that. So it's very common. Okay, so my first job in Japan actually was with a dispatch company, and it turns out it's like the most infamously bad one. Like I got a real bad one, and I think if you've been in Japan for more than like 5 years and you've been an English teacher, you probably know what this company is. It's honestly like the worst one. So the first thing they did was they told me to come to Japan on a tourist visa, and then they would switch it after that, which is actually illegal. Like a company should not be telling you to do that, and if they are telling you to do that, that is a red flag that that company just isn't very good. And then like it took a while for my visa to arrive, like a dangerously long time. I almost overstayed by like a day. I was just gonna go home. It was honestly a bad time. And then when I arrived, they told me that they had accommodation for me. I would be staying in the share house, and they would help set that up for me. But a lot of these dispatch companies have deals with certain housing groups or share houses where they get a commission or a cut if they can get the employees to work there, so they're making money from this. So the share house I went into was actually like not bad, but it was very expensive, and I feel like a lot of the money I was paying was just going straight to my company. The other thing is that they didn't tell me anything about moving in costs. Honestly, I didn't know. I knew there would be some kind of cost, but it ended up being like 100,000 yen. And when I moved to Japan, honestly, I didn't really have 100,000 yen. So, which was kind of on me. But yeah, they told me this really suddenly. And when I said, oh, I'm not sure if I'm able to like just magic 100,000 yen instantly. They said, well, if you don't, then you have to go home, because if you don't have an address, then you can't work, blah 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 blah. So I ended up having to just outright give them the money immediately, which was really, really dodgy. I'm not sure if you've seen my live streams, but I do live stream quite a lot, and I do answer a lot of questions about living in Japan. And one of them was someone asked about a job that they were looking at that provides accommodation, like they help set it up. And what I think that's can be good, like it can be easier. I would not would really advise against not tying your employment to your living space, because I've seen so many people live in employee housing and stuff like that, and then at the moment they want to quit, they have to immediately leave. They end up trapped there because obviously they have to keep working in order to live there, and your employer then has so much power over you. So I think it's better to keep those two things separate, in my opinion. This dispatch company also like charged me for a lot of things like text fix and stuff like that. It was like the worst company. It was like hella dodgy. The pay honestly wasn't that good, but I'm pretty sure that the school is paying them a lot of money. The only good thing is that I didn't really hear that much from them ever. They gave me a little bit of training and then they sent me to a school, and honestly I adapted pretty quickly and I just picked everything up by myself. But the end of the 6-month contract, it was like a week until the end when they're supposed to renew it, and they said to everyone in the area that we were living and working, oh, by the way, we couldn't secure the contract for the next term, so we're gonna let you all go. And obviously it was like a really bumblefuck place. It was like in Koshigaya, and like I didn't know how to get another job in Koshigaya. Honestly, it was pretty specific. That's when I ended up just moving to Shinjuku, and I think that made me realize how much dispatch companies do not care about their employees and how unstable working in Japan can be. And I'm just telling you this because it's something to keep in your mind, so you always have a backup plan and you always think, oh, like this possibly could happen, because it's not just something that happened to me. I know so many people with so many dispatch companies where this kind of thing really does happen often. We'll push through like years later when I actually worked for one of the much better dispatch companies. Like you have to live in Japan for like 4 or 5 years to be able to work there, and you have to have a lot of experience, and there is even a test to enter this dispatch company, and they honestly do pay really well. Like this one actually paid very well, and the only way I was able to get into this dispatch company actually was through a friend who did work there before and could reference me, because I did apply to work for them a couple of times and they never replied to any of my emails. And when I looked online on Glassdoor about them, it seems like they really just don't reply to most people, and they don't even offer most people interviews, which is like very strange. So I was really happy to start working with them, and when I started, normally the dispatch company would just place you in a school. Like they'll use their better judgment to place you in a school. But this one made me also do job interviews with the school. So not only did I have to do a long ass interview with them and a test, but then I also had to do interviews with the school. And they sent me to a high school that was super far from where I lived. Like I had to take a long ass train, a long ass bus, and we got there, and it was me and 2 other foreign women, and we had to have a job interview with the Kojo sensei and the Fukocho sensei, and it was like the principal and the vice principal, just in Japanese, in Keigo, the driest people you'll ever, the most tired men you will ever meet in your entire life. And we had to give a long like speech in Japanese in Keigo about like why we think we're good teachers, blah 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 blah. Then we had to do a demonstration lesson and like bring out, make our own materials and like give a demonstration lesson to an empty classroom and pretend that there were kids there. And I fucking hate roleplay. I hate it so much. It makes me feel physically sick, but I did it. And then yeah, I always remember that when I was walking in the hallways, some students came up to me and they're like, oh my god, who are you, like blah blah, and I was like talking with them a little bit, and I remember that the other teachers didn't really engage with the students. I was like, maybe I'll get the job. But it turns out that out of the 3 of us, one of them didn't speak Japanese at all. Like she didn't speak it all. She's just like, you know, she just couldn't speak Japanese, which is fine. I was like I'm conversational Japanese. Like my Japanese isn't incredible. Like I'm not fluent in Keigo or anything. But the other woman, she was fluent in Keigo, and so after the interview, we got our feedback, and the school said, we thought that like Hafsabani's lesson was much better, and she seemed to engage better with the students, but the other teacher's Japanese was better, so we hired her. I'm like, why the fuck didn't they just hire her in the first place? Jesus Christ, just ask who, if your priority is Japanese, just be like, give us whoever speaks Japanese the most. Also, like, why do we have to know fluent Keigo for this job? But anyways, I digress. I was actually kind of glad I didn't get that job because it was far, and honestly I don't want to work in a high school because kids have smartphones and social media, and I would just rather not have to deal with that. But then I had another job interview, or like I had two actually, because I was going to work in 2 different schools and 2 different elementary schools, and my boss, who was British, who did not have a very good command of the Japanese language but always used Japanese for some reason, he was the one in charge of telling me which station to go to for my job interview. And the station, I think it was like Ishikawa Dai, but he told me it was Ishikawa Cho, which is a different place. Those are different words. So yeah, I ended up going to Ishikawa Cho and trying to find the liaison that would meet me, and I'm like, where is he? And I call him. He's like, I'm at the ticket gate, I can't see you. And I'm like, I'm at the ticket gate too, I can't see you. And it turns out that my white boss just gave me the wrong place. So I'm like, okay. So I called him and I was like, oh, by the way, you sent me to Ishikawa Cho and not Ishikawa Dai. And then in a normal situation like that, you would just apologize and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, sorry for taking up your time, please go to the other station. But he was immediately like, well, I'm not infallible, people make mistakes, like things like this happen. And like he got kind of angry at me, and I remember like realizing like, oh god, it's gonna be like one of those fucking companies where like the higher ups just cannot take any fucking accountability, like just apologize. And I was like, okay, well, no harm done. And then I ended up going spending another 40 minutes to go to Ishikawa Dai to go to the school there. And yeah, most of the time working in any company, it's always your bosses that are going to be like the worst part of this. And for me, it was the worst part because this British guy was really, really nice, but he'd always call me into the office to speak with him. I'd be there like 2 hours, and he was so paranoid that like people were trying to take our jobs, or like the school was plotting something, like blah 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 blah. It was very bizarre. Like he was obsessed with the idea that this like sweet Japanese secretary at my school was plotting to get rid of us and replace us with like a jet, but she really wasn't. And he did not listen to anything I would have to say. He would always be like, I've been in the business for 20 years and I know how these things go. And like he really did not know much about anything, honestly. So, and it was stuck because I always had to humor him about like, yeah, so that was like honestly the worst part, is like having to like manage all these like weird personalities. And I remember one time he was like, okay, like I need you to make like a booklet of all your curriculums that you're using, just so I can have a look over it. So I spent fucking hours making booklets after booklets about all the materials I was using and the different lesson plans I was doing, blah blah blah, diagrams, pictures, the works. I brought it into the office, like this fat book. I gave it to him. He flipped through it and went, oh wow, this has pictures in it, and then closed it, and then like kept talking to me. He did not open it ever again. Like, this is what I mean. Waste of my time. Like, these people literally just think I have all day to just follow their every whim. So yeah, ultimately I ended up not working at that company anyway because of pretty much how the management mishandled everything. There's also, I made a video about that, about like my racist coworker, and that's a point that I brought up earlier. Like, I've had this before working with dispatch companies where I would just have a completely unreasonable coworker. In this case, she was just really, really racist, and she started to go a little bit insane. Like, I'm not joking. I think it might be from stress. Honestly, I'm not sure, but my boss kept calling me in his office and like being like, how can we alleviate the situation? Like, maybe you need to be nicer to her, maybe you need to do this, maybe you need to do that. And it doesn't matter how many times I told her that she is impossible to reason with, like absolutely impossible to reason with. And he'd set up meetings with her and my boss, my school principal, and he'd try to be nice to her, and she'd be like, I just think that you should have to graduate university in Japan to work here and stuff like that, and just say like really racist stuff. And and after every meeting, my British boss would be like, I think we made some headway. I'm like, no, she's impossible to reason with. And in the end, she was impossible to reason with, and then it ended up breaking down. But like, again, a reoccurring theme with dispatch companies is how much they just don't listen to their employees, and if they did that, then probably everything would be much easier. And I had this like a very similar thing happen to me years and years ago when I was working at another private school. Is that there was this like middle-aged Japanese woman who had fired 4 or 5 people before me. And I started working there for a little bit, and then I was working there for like a couple of months, and then she called my school and said she wanted to get rid of me and the other foreign teacher working with me. It's not really firing, really, because they can just put you in another school or whatever, but it was just really friggin' annoying, because once you arrive in the school, you have to learn all the kids' names and like all the structure and the curriculum or anything, so honestly it's just really annoying. And of course, my company were like, yes, okay, right away, like blah 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 blah. And then after that happened, again, my British boss, a different British boss, he said, oh, like looking back, I think that we should have been firmer and we should have tried to push back, because they just keep making us send them people, and they keep firing them. And it's like, grow a backbone, Jesus Christ. Like, this is the problem, like particularly if you're a foreign company, you should really use that to your advantage, because like so many dispatch companies, particularly when they're run by foreigners, I feel like they almost try to be too Japanese, and so it's almost sometimes worse. They try to just be like as polite and nice as they can, and they end up just losing all their territory, and they get walked all over, and I've just seen it so many times. That's my experience working with dispatch companies. Again, only as an English teacher. I have a lot of other jobs, and I've worked with like agencies like Model 8 and talent agencies, and I feel like the nuance is slightly different than working in the education sector. Again, like, I wouldn't recommend working with a dispatch company if you could possibly avoid it, but when you're new in Japan, honestly, it just really is the easiest option. And a lot of companies exclusively hire dispatch companies, so unless you're with that company, you won't be able to get the job at that company. So it's just like a vicious cycle. It seems like people are starting to unionize more in Japan and like talk about labor laws and stuff like that. Again, a lot of times, particularly with the company I work for, which was one of the much better dispatch companies, I found that some of the things that they were doing were like not illegal, but like they should have been offering me more benefits that they weren't, and so I had to pull them up on it. And when I did pull them up on it, they did deny it, and then I had to show them the actual law, and then that's the only way they would give them to me. So I really recommend, if you're working for one of these companies, you get you study a little bit about labor law, because all these companies are kind of dodgy, and they all will kind of like, not necessarily like outright lie to you, but they'll be very vague, and they won't tell you things, so you might lose a lot of benefits. And that's honestly like my biggest thing that I would recommend to people who are working in Japan. Just know your rights. Honestly, anyone working in any country, to be honest. And if you watch my live streams, I'm having like a similar problem with the company I just started working for, which is a dispatch company. They said they would offer me some social insurances, and when I started working there, they said actually we can't offer them to you, and I'm having to show them the law that says by law they have to offer it to me, and they're like, we'll take a look at it, but I'm trying to delay it, so I'm having this whole thing. So it's just honestly just a pain in the ass, because all these companies, they have their own lawyers that specifically look for loopholes in the law to try and like get as much as they can from you. I might make a video about that another date, but because it's honestly going to be really boring. I don't know if you guys actually want to listen to that, but yeah. But anyways, that was my video about dispatch companies. Now I'm going to go to work with my dispatch company right now, so I'm not looking forward to that. Dispatch companies there's positives and negatives. You will probably, if you're gonna move to Japan and be an English teacher, you probably will end up working for them, and you know, that's cool. Just make sure you know your rights, and always look at the job board and see what kind of jobs there are. And another thing is always discuss your salary with your co-workers. I know it's really awkward, but companies will tell you not to discuss your salary, but I would honestly recommend just making sure that everyone's on the same playing field, and that we really, as workers, particularly in this economy, need to start talking more about our rights, labor laws and salaries and stuff like that, because these companies are really sneaky in every country, and the more that we're aware of that, and the more we talk about that, and the more we push against that and try to unionize, the easier it will get. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe.